For the month of May, we're kicking off a series that I'm calling Foundations. For our international listeners, we'll be exploring words that have been attributed to the very fabric of this great experiment that we call America. For our U.S. listeners, hopefully these episodes can provide some additional context or new perspective on the origins, meanings, and reason that we place so much value on these words as ideals, concepts, and cornerstones. Now, this is the third episode in the Foundations mini-series, Truth. This episode is dedicated to all those who have spoken the truth, even when it cost them. To the witnesses who stood firm when the world looked away, to the writers, the scientists, the rebels, and the ordinary souls who refused to stay silent. To those who sought truth not for glory, but because it was right. And to everyone still chasing it, through the noise, the fear, and the temptation to settle for easy lies. May we remember that truth is not owed to us. It is earned through courage, clarity, and the will to see things as they are. In a quiet courtroom, a witness raises their right hand and swears to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. On a crumpled bumper sticker, the word truth is stamped in capital letters, half peeled, half defiant. A journalist hits publish. A whistleblower hits send. A scientist publishes findings that nobody wants to believe. Because truth doesn't ask for permission. It simply is. Or we hope it is. But truth isn't always solid. It bends, it blurs, it's filtered through experience, spun by power, and sometimes drowned by noise. And yet we still chase it. Religions are built on it, research relies on it, and relationships break because of it. Truth is something we seek, something we speak, and sometimes something we survive. Today we're going to peel back the centuries, dig into the roots, and follow the winding path of a word that has never stopped changing, and never stop demanding something from us in return. Welcome back to Lexiconned, the podcast that digs deep into the roots and modern echoes of the words we live by. I'm your host, TJ, and this is another installment in our Foundation mini-series. We've talked through freedom and justice, and today we turn to something just as essential, but often more elusive: truth. Where it came from, how we've used it, and how it's been used on us. Truth, at its roots, is older than courts, constitutions, or headlines. The English word truth comes from the Old English word troth, meaning faith, fidelity, loyalty, constancy, veracity. It's directly tied to the Old English word trēw, meaning faithful or trustworthy, and trēw itself traces back to the Proto-Germanic trauer, meaning having or characterized by good faith. Even deeper, it comes from the Proto-Indo-European root deru, meaning to be firm, solid, or steadfast. Now, deru is the same root word that gives us other words like durable or endure and tree, all things that mean to stand strong against time or pressure. In short, truth originally wasn't about facts, it was about faithfulness. In early societies, truth wasn't just something you said, it was something you were. As an adjective, a person was considered true if they were loyal, dependable, or constant. The early legal systems of the Germanic tribes, including Anglo-Saxon England, placed enormous value on a person's truthfulness, usually indicated by their social standing and their oath-taking ability. To speak the truth was to hold faith with your community, your ruler, and your God. It wasn't evidence-based. It was more relational. It wasn't really about proof, it was more about trust. Now, interestingly, in Latin, the closest concept was not truth as loyalty, but veritas. And I'm sure most of you are familiar with the Latin phrase, in vino veritas, meaning in wine there is truth. But veritas comes from the word veris, meaning true or genuine. And veritas, even without the vino, gave rise to the philosophical ideas of objective truth, truth as something independent of people's beliefs. Now, Christianity later fused these two traditions together. The truth as both faithfulness, your moral obligation, and truth as an objective reality, that divine or natural law. And that fusion helped shape medieval Europe, and it still shapes us today, even though we may not realize it. And by the early 13th century, the meaning of truth was starting to shift again. In the Magna Carta, which was written in 1215, truth is invoked as something owed by rulers to the people, a standard of justice and fairness. Specifically, Article 38 states that no bailiff, meaning official, should put a man on trial based solely on his unsupported accusation without credible witnesses to support the truth of that accusation. Now, this clause emphasizes the importance of evidence and due process in the legal proceeding. And it's followed later by Clause 40, which famously reads, "To no one will we sell, to no one deny or delay right or justice." Here, truth is linked to justice, something objective, something owed, no longer just a personal trait. Truth began to evolve into a political and legal principle. Now, meanwhile, in the Enlightenment, truth undergoes another revolution. Philosophers and scientists, they begin defining truth not by oath or loyalty, but by evidence, repeatability, and proof. Francis Bacon's Novum Organum, which was written in 1620, argued that knowledge must be based on systematic observation, not authority. And later Newton's Principia, written in 1687, modeled truth through natural laws, testing them by experiment. And in this world, truth was no longer just a matter of faith, it was a matter of method. But the birth of modern journalism in the 17th century brought another complete shift. Courantos, which were early news sheets in Amsterdam and London, claimed to report on truths from the wars of Europe. But there was no verification process, no expectation of objectivity, and truth at best was what your sources swore to be true. Kind of like, fake news. And as printing expanded, the idea of truth began to split. Personal loyalty, the old truth, or factual accuracy, the new truth. Then by the 19th century, especially in America, journalism began marketing itself as the truth tellers of society. Though bias and partisanship were still rampant and have continued to shape the American political system for years. Truth had now transformed from faithfulness to fairness to factuality in just a few hundred years. And the struggle over which kind of truth? Well, that's an argument that still rages today.
It's all fake news. It's phony stuff. It didn't happen.
Truth has never just been a virtue. It's been a battlefield. Every major revolution has wrapped itself in the banner of truth. In 1776, the American Declaration of Independence declared certain truths self-evident, rights given by nature or God, not by kings. In 1789, the French Revolution demanded vérité, truth, as one of its rallying cries, directly alongside liberté and égalité. And in 1963, at the Lincoln Memorial, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. invoked America's promissory note, which was a truth unfulfilled and overdue. You see, when we invoke the word truth, it's a challenge to power, to accuse our rulers of betrayal, or to demand something better. Now, artists, poets, and writers, they've long tangled with the truth, not as a cold fact, but as a felt experience. Shakespeare and King Lear warned that truth spoken too bluntly could destroy. And Emily Dickinson, in her famous poem, urged, "Tell all the truth, but tell it slant. Success in circuit lies. To bright for our infirm delight, the truth's superb surprise. As lightning to the children eased, with explanation kind, the truth must dazzle gradually, or every man be blind." And that poem is asking us to convey truth in a way that is palatable and understandable, rather than directly, which could be too overwhelming or even harmful. Because truth in art, much like other areas of life, is not always absolute. It's emotional, it's reflected, it's complex. Sometimes we can only handle truth in pieces.
You want answers! I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
In modern politics, truth often becomes not a shared goal, but a weapon. Orwell captured this cynicism in the novel 1984, writing, "The party told you to reject the evidence of your eyes and ears. It was their final, most essential command. And in the 21st century, truth itself is a political football. Competing news outlets offer competing realities. Social media blurs the lines between fact and fiction. And for us, truth, that concept once considered sacred, is now just a buzzword. Or worse, it's marketed to us. But truth is something that we still crave. We still fight over it, and we still hope for it. And across all cultures and languages, truth isn't just a word, it's a worldview. And not everyone sees it the same way. In German, Wahrheit is the quality or state of being true, conforming with fact or reality. But German philosopher and scientist Martin Heidegger argued that truth isn't just factual correctness. Truth is unconcealment, meaning it's something revealed, not something manufactured. In this view, truth is something you don't own. You uncover it or you blind yourself to it. And in ancient Greek, truth was an active pursuit. It required memory, courage, and clarity. In Japanese, shinjitsu combines two characters, shin, meaning true or real, jitsu, reality or substance. Truth in this framework isn't merely about correctness. It's about authentic existence. In Zen traditions, truth can be personal and experiential, not easily expressed through language. It's a felt truth, not just a stated one. And in French, vérité. It's the cousin of the Latin veritas. In France's political culture, vérité has often carried revolutionary power. Truth not as neutrality, but as a moral weapon against the corruption and injustice. The common thread for all of us, across languages, is that truth is rarely just about information. It's about revealing something, or remaining loyal, or bearing witness. Truth is supposed to be simple. But simple doesn't mean easy. Across cultures, truth is a manifestation of beliefs, sometimes with factual, irrefutable evidence, but often not. Truth can be liberating or can bind one for life. Sometimes truth is as solid as oak, anchored and enduring. Sometimes it's a flicker in the dark, hidden, fragile, but desperately needed. But truth demands something of us. It demands loyalty, bravery. It demands the willingness to admit when we're wrong and the courage to say what's right, even when it costs us everything. And truth, whether personal, political, or universal, is never passive. In a world flooded with noise, spin, and endless distraction, truth remains what it has always been. Not just a fact, not just a belief, but a choice. And every time we choose it, despite the cost, despite the personal doubt, we keep truth alive. And when it comes to choices, thank you for choosing to listen to Lexiconned. I'm TJ, and this has been Lexiconned. Thanks for listening and for caring about the words that shape the world we live in. Stay curious, stay kind, and be well. If you liked this episode of Lexiconned, don't forget to like, follow, and share with friends. It really helps. As always, Lexiconned is written, recorded, and produced by me, your logophile companion, TJ Martin. Thanks for listening.